So this is an introduction to the BYOB BX content slider box for Thesis 2.1. This box will take any kind of post content that can be displayed and turn it into a sliding box or a set of slides using the query box. So what you can do with this is, for example, take post content and slide through it for recent posts or featured posts. You could use it as an image slider for a portfolio. You can use it to display featured products, testimonials, or sponsors, or anything like that. Anything that you might want to have slide past, that you would like to have a sliding content for, you can use this slider for. And so the first thing we're going to do is just install it, of course. Click on this link to download it. And then we're going to install it over here on this site. So I'm going to come over to the boxes, manage boxes, and upload the box, and choose the file from the downloads that I have. And I'm choosing the BYOB BX slider box. Now notice how this box has a 1 beside it. If I use this box, the box is going to break. Right? What has happened is my browser has, or my operating system notices that I've already got one of these things in the folder, so it adds the number 1 to this. Which ends up making the thing break. So what you want to do is make sure that if you've got more than one copy, you use the copy without the numeral in it. And if you don't, you want to make sure it has the same name. Anyway, upload that box. Then check the box here and save the boxes. At which point, when we go into our skin editor, we will now have a box that can be added to our template. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add some posts to the sidebar column here of our home page for the moment. So we'll scroll down here under the select a box to add dialog and look for the BYOB BX content slider box. We'll add that box. And then we're going to shift drag that box into the sidebar column. And then we're going to use a query box as the tool for grabbing the content and for deciding what content to display. So we're going to add a query box here. And in this query, we're going to call this query box, say, featured posts or recent posts. Now we'll call it featured posts. Okay. Now the critical thing about this is that this HTML tag must be switched to a UL. Okay. If you look at your thing and say, "Oh, it's not working right," this should fly off in your mind saying, "Oh, the HTML tag needs to be a UL." Okay. With it set up as a UL, we can say OK to that, and then we shift drag that and drop it into the BX content slider. Now we can actually, well, let's open up the content slider settings. Note that there are 2 bright orange notes here for you. One of them is that you must save the CSS after saving these options in order for them to take effect. Okay, so once we save this template, we are going to have to go over to CSS and save the CSS. And the second one is that this query box HTML tag has to be set to a UL. Okay. Now you have a number of things that you can set here. For example, you can set slide transitions. And you have 3 different choices for slide transitions: horizontal, vertical, and fade. We'll stick with horizontal. The duration of the slide is in milliseconds, so 4,000 milliseconds means the slide lasts 4 seconds. The transition speed is 500 milliseconds, which means that the transition from slide to slide is as a half a second. Okay? These things are all modifiable. Then we come over to styling. And you can choose to show a border around this. You can set up a background color. You can set up interior padding. By default, the background color is white, and by default, the interior padding is 15 pixels. And then you can also set up some navigation controls. At the moment, what we're going to do is just show navigation buttons. We won't show start and stop buttons, and we won't show pagination. But and this can be used to adjust the height of the buttons, which we'll look at here in just a moment. So if we say OK to this, we can come over here and save our template. Then save our CSS. And go over to the home page, or go to the blog page, I guess. Now you can see we've got this slider here set up. It's got a little border around it. It's got the title, the name, the date, the edit. These little navigation buttons, the excerpt and the read more, just as the query box happens to be set up, and you can move back and forth through these things with those boxes, and if you leave it unchecked, it's just going to transition through them one by one. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this, right? We could, for example, come back over here and say display only let's display some post images instead. So if we take our WP featured image, and we'll take the excerpt out, the edit link out, the date out, the author out, but just leave our featured image in. And then if we pick the medium-sized featured image, let's say centered with no wrap, and set our headline to a P, then we can save this template. Come back over and refresh it, and now you can see what this looks like in the case of, where it's behaving simply like a featured image slider, like an image slider. In fact, you could remove the title if you wish and just show images there. Now we have a lot of control over the appearance of this, so we can come back over to the settings here and say let's not show those navigation buttons, but let's show start and stop buttons and pagination buttons at the bottom. So we say OK to that. We save the template. We come over to CSS and we save the CSS, and we refresh it. And now we've got these little pagination buttons down here, and we've got a start and a stop button, and you can move through that stuff if you wish. If you want more space around the border, you can just add additional margin in the settings here under styling. You could say 25px instead. Remember to save the CSS. Refresh it. Now you've got more room around there. Okay, now this is set up using posts, right? And that's just taking the most recent posts. But we can easily do this with, anything that the query box can display. So we could come over here to the query box and go to skin content and come to our featured posts query box. And right now it's set to display recent posts. Well, we could easily just set it to select categories and show only the oranges categories and show only 4 of those and hit save. And then if we refresh this, now the only posts that are going to show up here are posts in the category of oranges. So obviously it works as a category slider. This can also be used as a slider for custom post types. So for example, I've created these testimonials. I have a testimonial post type that I've created, and I've got 4 different testimonials here. So instead of using posts, I'm going to choose testimonials. Come back over to skin content and open up that featured post query box. And now I'll choose testimonials. And we'll just leave it like that. We'll save those options. But then we'll come back over to the skin editor. And now, rather than just showing an image in this, what I really want to do is show an excerpt as well. And I think this wants to be I'm going to use the tiny thumbnail image size for this. And that's going to be left with text wrap. Link the image to the post and hit save to that. And now we have a testimonial slider with picture of the person giving the testimonial, and then there a little bit of introductory stuff, and so anyway, it can serve that function, and then you can click off to the actual testimonial if that's what you want to do. So anyway, it's a very versatile tool that will let you put in anything that you can display in a query box can be displayed in a rotating fashion in this slider. I hope you find it useful.